Hi all. Video update's been a little bit lackluster recently. Got a damn good reason to cough at the moment because I've just been slowly recovering from Omicron. Yes, not particularly happy about that, but really happy, to be honest, that me and the wife have pulled through it, because I had about 9 days in total where I was completely bedridden. And with the both of us having it at the same time, it kind of made things a bit awkward, especially when you have an 11-month-old puppy. Anyway, I'm pulling back through to it now. I'm back in the shop, which is good. My stamina level is down really low at the moment. I'm breathing a lot, but I'm not coughing, which was basically every time you try to push yourself, because my lungs were full of COVID, you'd end up just basically having to cough your lungs up until you lay down flat, and then basically slowed your breathing to a point at which you could survive. Anyway, less of the bad shit. I'm kind of out of that now, thank God. Definitely God go with us on that one, because it was nasty. Anyway, yeah, so I bought some suspension height potentiometers, and I needed to know exactly whereabouts in the arc on here the voltage would change. These are, I think it was right now, they are BMW automatically leveling headlamp units. So basically, if your BMW is on a kind of a cant that way, on an upward slope, then basically it readjusts the LED headlamps. So they're plentiful. They're $30 or whatever else. I think you can even find cheaper than that for non-OEM ones. So we had to wire this up to make sure we had an idea as to where the voltage range is and where the arc is, so then I know how to mount them on the car. So we've got some 6-pin plugs, which I had to buy anyway, because they're exactly the same plug as the Bosch Motorsport drive-by-wire. So we did that. It's gone now. I bought myself a little 5-volt, because I need, obviously it's 0 to 5 volt. Bought myself a little 5-volt transformer, so we go from 12 to 5 to give me 5 volts out. And we actually have a working range on a swing. I'll work that out later. Roughly from where it sits in that corner there, you have about a 0.5 volt to 4.5 volts range in that. Now, that's perfectly okay. It also strangely starts again at 4.5 volts and goes to 0.5 volt there. But there's a dead band pretty much from there to there, which is what we needed to know and how we could mount them. So these are now going to be mounted, probably if we mid-mount them like that. There's some nice metal inserts in here to mount brackets, so we'll put a mounting bracket and we'll mount them in here, and then we'll put a link bar between there and put it up there. I've already ordered the little link bars on Amazon. So basically now, as the suspension moves up and down through its travel, we'll have a sort of 4.5 to 0, or 0 to, oh sorry, 0.5 volt to 4.5 volt range on here. Now this can then be sent directly to the ECU, so that all 4 corners of the car will be mapped. That's a bit awkward at the back, as you can see it from here. We'll do the same thing here. We'll probably just make it a little bit easier on the mounting. Yeah, probably mount them down here somewhere. Maybe up there, I don't know, we'll see. Basically, you've got to attach a little 6mm threaded bar to there, and then we'll just have all 4 corners. So it's a lot of information for the ECU to process, but what I can do now is see how my compound and my compression rebound settings on the shock absorbers, how I'll actually look at the trend, drive around the track, look at the trend again, alter the compression and rebound, and alter it until I've got a smoother, basically a more caught up kind of compound and rebound compression. Yes, it's a bit of a non-seat of the pants. It's more of a, should we say, Mercedes F1 style, looking at them and basically looking at the data. And it basically means that to do they're single adjustable at the moment, which basically adjusts compound compression and rebound damping at the same time. But at a later date, I can send these shocks away, and they will change the bodies to a remote canister reservoir. Basically swap the bodies out for remote canister reservoir, and then basically you've got three-way adjustable shocks. So you've got individually compression, rebound, and then you've got also a slow movement. I can't remember what they call it now, but basically it's a third stage. So I can actually upgrade these shocks to the versions that we used on the last 962, which was a remote canister. So it's not a it's not a bad idea. And then I'll keep those shock bodies for another. We'll build some shocks for that later. But what I can do is map what I've got at the moment to see exactly how much valving I've got, and then we can alter that valving if we need a little bit more compression valving. Then basically we can have that valving changed at the same time as that, because obviously I've got a range at the moment, and that range is known, it's set. When we ordered the shocks from Nitron, they recommended a range, but basically if we need a little bit more, then I can have the valving changed when we upgrade the shocks. But I need to map them first, so sensors are plenty. Obviously on top of that, we also need to connect the ABS sensors also directly to the M-Tron ECU. They can take that high pulse rate from an ABS sensor, but then that gives me 4 wheel speed sensors and 4 suspension height sensors, so we can see exactly what this car's doing. Anyway, that's the little step forward there. Oh yeah, we got some new toys for the toy box. It's only arrived today, funny enough. So, well, if I pick the right box, Clive. There we go. Tap that out. And for the steering wheel setup, I wanted some basically flappy paddles, for the lack of a better sense. Basically now I have just about a nice here click. So I didn't really want these obviously for anything because we're a manual gear change, but what I did want is indicators. So we are going to mount them to the chassis, probably to the actual steering column piece there. I'll make a clamp on piece that I can do to this radius here, and just put a stud through it, sorry, split ring sort of thing, and then we'll make a little billet place to cover these up, and then we'll have our indicators left and right. So they came today. They're pretty nice. I think they're a Mercedes, an OEM replacement Mercedes unit, so they're quite nicely engineered. But I've got to make a billet plate now, obviously, to go between the two of them, and just lightweight the hell out of it. But then I've put a clamp ring at the back that allows me to clamp it off the steering. Basically, a little bit of adjustment needed. So that's the little tiny things on the car. Obviously, I've kind of been in bed for a while. But this morning, we finally took the plunge and took the mold off of the side sill on one side. That one still has the mold. That one still has the original buck in there. But I was keen to take this one apart. So no cutting of fiberglass. I'd already trimmed this, thank God, because I don't want to make a mess. But we now have our first completed, well, semi-completed mold. The finish you can see in here is basically the finish that the PVA left. So when we sprayed PVA all code, we had a perfectly buffed buck, or plug as you call it. Once we sprayed the PVA on there, which is a guarantee to get release, you've got a bit of a sort of shading thing here. So next step on this will be to wet flat this down to 1200. So we'll probably start with 1000 and then just go to 1200. Wet flat this all down, and then this is ready to make parts. So super happy with the thickness. We went 8 layers in total. It's really rigid. There's really not much need for a support on these at all. There's obviously a lot of surface returns, a lot of large flanges. There's also quite a lot of extra material. We don't need this. Obviously, this sill will stop probably only about here. It's about 2 inches into the flat, and then bolt to the side splitters. I have a lot of extra material here Only got about 2 inches there, but that's fine. But everywhere else, I've got lots of returns. We need this surface here because that'll go up against the diffuser, but this surface there and most of that surface here isn't needed. So when we vac bag, we can put a resin infused bag around there. Now, first parts won't be vac bagged. First parts will be just normal fiberglass laid up for the moment. I need to get the car done and finished, so we'll have a we're going to have fiberglass front, rear clip and side sections for the moment. There will be carbon splitters on both sides, carbon front splitter, the end of the diffuser, which we already have the diffuser tunnel molds here, and then the end cap mold over there. That will be carbon because I want that carbon part to start off with. And obviously we're going to have carbon vents for the wheeler. Excuse me, excuse my breathing. I can't talk for too long without being out of breath, which is, oh shit, sad, but what else? Yeah, so we'll still have a carbon wheel arch vent, carbon wheel arch vent, carbon front splitter, and then a carbon inlay piece for the headlamp itself. And probably carbon top sill closure panels and a few accents on the dash. I want the dash to be covered, so I'm not going to bother going carbon. I may have a little, just a carbon binnacle. Oh, yes. Out of breath, standing still talking. That's what COVID does to you. So I'm still kind of in recovery. I said a coughing's almost stopped, but you still have to occasionally clear your chest. There you go. So I've got an excuse to cough at this point. We did start a 962 tube chassis when my daughter was here, just after Christmas. As a father's daughter project, everything else. But it was nice to throw a couple of panels on, to be honest, and just check how that fits. And to be honest, I'm quite happy with, super happy with the side sills. The doors were from previous manufacturers, that I've used before, and these turned out a lot better quality than the stuff that I had from previously. And it's a different fiberglass guy, albeit the same tooling and same owner. So I'm happy in that respect. So this is set up basically on a flat jig. Obviously the chassis is not perfectly flat. Everything's at an angle, so you've got a sort of a 22mm gap here, and if you look on the front here, we've got the sort of raised section here, and this is how the original 962 tub was, because it had aero, so basically the air comes under the front, lifts up, compresses back down again. It tends to push the air to the side, and then your diffuser tunnel starts basically at the driver's arse and comes up to the side, and then obviously with a flat six, there's not a lot of height you can gain in the center, so basically it comes around and then builds up to a large diffuser at the back. So there's no triangulation in that chassis yet. We just got the basic shape, so I could throw the roll cage on. More work to be done, so whenever I'm free from doing stuff on this or waiting for fiberglass to go off, I can drop onto this and basically not have any gap in time. Well, that's when I'm feeling better anyway. But yes, yeah, poor thing's being used as just a chop strand mat carrier at the moment, which is kind of a shame. But yes, we've got lots of stuff there. A bit disappointed, got some ECU Masters stuff on its way, but then the guy's cancelled. Obviously, he's not had a chance to get the parts. Probably the chip shortage at the moment, so I'm probably going to have to go to ECU Masters UK or in Europe somewhere to order the parts that I wanted. I wanted a little CAN board for my steering wheel, the USB to CAN interface that allows me to program that, and some rotary pots and stuff for the steering wheel, which haven't arrived, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, just like he's honest enough, he's cancelled the order and refunded. So, but yes, first mold, which is nice to see it actually came off. And you just got to be happy the fact that if you put too much gel coat too thick into a corner, say, it will lift away from the buck. That hasn't happened. There's two layers of vinyl ester gel coat on this, and they turned out pretty good. So the depth of this was always going to be a bit of a concern because it's kind of the bit that points out the most. But I did restrict some of that, and I'm still pretty confident I can do that in one and not have to sort of preload the corner. So we'll make a couple of long extended brushes to get in there, but there's no way I'm going to spray in there. It's just the pan won't be good enough. So, but super happy with this. Nothing's pulled away. This secondary panel here that we had to add in because this surface here was unfortunately a lock. So this piece is a secondary come out. So we've got a bit of a nasty line here that we'll pre-fill with wax before we put a part on there. But we'll have a parting line along here that we'll have to obviously cut out with a tiny parting line down here. And then the other parting line is in parts of the body that are really far away. Okay, that one's not too bad, but there'll be a few lines to get down. But yeah, super glad. First big mold and dead happy with it. So yes, I'm blattering on. Next week I'll start pulling that one out, but this one needs to be trimmed. So I hadn't trimmed that before we got stuck in lockdown, should we say. So I need to trim that first before it comes apart. And here's that anti-lock part on the back side of what that one is. Yeah, it's just a bad design on my area. If I'd have thought about it, I'd have put more of a angle on that surface, and I wouldn't have needed to put this secondary piece in, and there would have been no shut line to do to actually remove. So I've got a shut line here and then one down the middle. I'll have to sand when the parts come out the mold. So anyway, that's pretty much it. We did say about 4 weeks ago go over with the front clip with the buffing tool and some just basically some of the rough compound buffing, and it must have come out pretty shiny straight away. So I was literally on it for less than half an hour. This side needs another pass. Dead happy that this has come out. So this will be the next big mold. And while we're taking this big mold, we'll pull parts out of the side sills and set them up in the car. Obviously the rear clip. So the rear clip will be the last one to do. Have figured out that I need to build a rotisserie on an axle down the center here, because as I'm building the mold, I'll need to turn the mold this way to be able to do this wheel arch section. So I need to turn the mold that way, pivot it through the center here to allow me to do where the flange will be here and have this flange there as well, because you can't laminate upside down. It just doesn't do it. The chop strand will just come off, peel off. So once I've done the main top section, which can be done in one, there are no locking angles. They're close. It's only about 2 degrees, but it's a lot better than nothing. So I should be able to pull this in one bit, and then basically we shall index. I'll build a rotisserie, so mount it from here across into the front, build a rotisserie, and then we'll turn that way, and then we'll do the side mold, and then we'll turn it the other way and do the other side. This back piece can be done at any time. There's a little bit of a negative return, but I think I can get away with that. Sorry, there's a little bit of a negative return here, but I think I can just about get away with that. And then eventually we'll need to completely turn this all the way over, because I'll have to laminate this return edge here. So still quite a bit of engineering to go just on the buck, just to make bloody tooling. But yeah, super happy how shiny this came out. And there's only one minor little corrective area here. It's a bit of a low spot, but that'll be a high spot in the mold. So I'm not that fussed, because I'll flatten out in the mold. And there's just a bit of a waver here, but yet again, it's on the negative, which will be a positive on the mold, so I can block that out at the mold polishing stage. Anyway, 20 minutes, Jesus Christ, I'm rabbiting on. But lovely to be back in the land of living. So I'm kind of out of breath pretty soon, so I've got to rebuild up my stamina on that one. But yeah, super happy. Lots of little bits of progress here and there. I can do some CAD work this afternoon to design my billet bracket for these babies, so I can sit down and do something constructive. I don't feel like doing anything too physical at the moment. Anyway, there you go. Little bit knocked off. It's all good. Need this thing bloody running this summer. Speak to you all soon.